How was the brownie? I'm not going to use the mic. How was the brownie? Brownie was good? Brownie was good? Good. I'm going to start by asking you a couple of questions. Is data resiliency business or technology? How many of you say business? Business? How many of you say technology? Technology? Let's see what it is. We'll go through the slides and see how it handles. You would have seen this, right? Which one would you want to answer? How resilient is your data, or is your data resilient? Which one do you want to answer? Come on, guys. You said brownie, right? You had brownie. So which part do you want to be? How resilient is your data, right? So that's where the resiliency comes in. We don't want to be on, is your data resilient, right? So we'll start with that question. Where's my data, right? Recently we had the scorpion leaks happening between India and France. And the leak happened in Australia. We don't know where the data went, where the data originated. We are yet to find out. So where's my data, right? So what is data first? I just would want to bring in something. What is data? What do you think is data, right? I just would want to bring your attention to two things. One, what is data? What is information, right? Data can be something which is something that represents a fact, okay? And what is information? Something puts a meaning to that data is what we call it as information, right? So it is used at every level of the enterprise, be it at the governance layer or at the operational layer. So let's see how we can build the resiliency. So what is resiliency? What do you think the English word of resiliency? I'm not going to talk technical jargon like mirroring, RAIDs, clustering, nothing. This is just going to be a plain English one. Okay. So what is resiliency? Okay. So there's a current state. Something has changed it, and we would want to bring it back to the right state. Is what resiliency is all about. Okay. So to maintain an acceptable level of service in an organization. Okay, and what? A server can go down, a network system can go down, entire data center can go down. But here's the kicker. When we talk resiliency, the users doesn't know that it has gone down. Okay, the difference between resiliency and recovery. We'll take a look at it. When we talk recovery, we talk business continuity. Of course, most of the people would be here. I mean, they would have heard about business continuity. We talk about disaster recovery. But where does resiliency fit in here? Where does resiliency fit in here? So, ideally, the users should not be aware of something gone wrong. That talks about your resiliency. So, why do you think we need resiliency? Right? Are we tolerant for downtime these days? Absolutely no. Right? If your Gmail is down for a few minutes, how many of you are, pissed off with Google? Right? No, I need those services. Whether in your own organization, if your email server is down, you won't be able to send emails to your clients or receive one from them, right? So, but here's the point. The business continuity and DR, the disaster recovery, is focused on, I mean, I don't want to use the word predominantly, but it focuses on natural disasters, of course, some not so good events occurring in an organization. But they have a low probability. Of course, they do have an high impact. Okay, so BC and DR, they focus on that. So if your organization has some downtime, okay, due to a natural disaster or a simple hard drive failure, okay, what is the business going to tell you? Forget about the technological things. What is the business going to tell you? The business is going to say, I don't care whether it is a natural disaster or a simple email failure, right? Get me up and running. So that is one thing which the business is focused on, getting the services back up and running. I mean, this is a very old concept, but I thought I should bring it back to your attention. Why resiliency in the sense? If you see there's 1 nines, okay, the availability percent is 90, okay. The downtime during a year, it can be 36.5 days during a year. If you have 2 nines in your availability percentages, you will have 3.65 days as a downtime. So if you have 5 nines in your availability, 99.999, you have 5.26 minutes. Is that a good downtime to have? Maybe, maybe not. Even, I mean, businesses want lesser time than that, 5.26 minutes. So what is the difference between uptime and availability? The system can be up and running, but is it available for you to use it? Okay, so that is one of the questions which we keep on asking about. So why resiliency? Why are we talking about resiliency? One of the main things is the perceived and the actual risks are increasing. Day by day, the risks are increasing, and the top reasons are increasing reliance on technology. One, of course, greater business complexity. We deal with complex business these days, and increasing frequency and intensity of the natural disasters. Of course, business continuity in an organization is headed by someone. The DR is headed by the same person. The risk management is headed by a different person. The information security is headed by a different person. A CISO for information security, a CRO for risk management, right? And BCDR, we typically, there's a director for BC and DR. Are these in silos? Do you think they operate out of silos, right? Do they coordinate? If these guys coordinate, imagine what would be the benefits. Okay, mostly the organizations, they are in silos. Okay, and if we have them coordinate, certainly the resiliency factor is pretty high. How resiliency can be built? One, it can be built into your, I mean, as I asked you guys, here is what, is it a business or technology? Okay, yes, the next door will talk about it as technology, but here, I thought I should present it to you in such a way that it is set at the top, at the business layer, so that we'll talk about the nuances when we can go about doing the technologies. So one reason resiliency is so often expensive and ineffective, why do you think it's, do we even think about resiliency when we design? We talk about security by design, right? So what do? We predominantly build the solutions, put it into operation, and then we talk about resiliency. Is that even a right approach? Right? We talk security by design. So when do we need to think about resiliency? At the feasibility study or at the very beginning stage of what you're trying to build? So that is the first one. And of course the second one is streamlined redundant processes. Okay, like across disciplines, which I talked about, BC, DR, bring them together and see how it improves your resiliency factor. Obviously, ensure ongoing funding and commitment. It has to come from the top. The top management has to believe that it is also a part of business rather than an operations factor. How resiliency, again, I will have to go through a little bit of how it happens. Of course, we have cloud-based DR, disaster recovery services. They are drastically changing the way the enterprises consume DR services. And cloud-to-cloud backup, it can happen. You would have some part of your services in the cloud setup, and you can have a cloud-to-cloud backup as well. Some of the other things is your file sync and mobile access, your operational backup for your endpoints. How many people back up your devices, your mobile devices? You back it up, or is it backed up? You back up, right? Okay. There are many of us in this organization. Google, if you're using Android, Google backs it up for you. Okay, and provided you click on that option for you to back it up. So that is one. Operational backup for your endpoints. And ignore this trend, you will have disastrous results like data leaks, which is happening in the Scorpion at this point of time. And continuity automation, we don't need to talk about automation much, because the biggest bottleneck in recovery plans is, who do you think? Is it technology? No, it's us. It is us. So either the right people are not available for us to provide the solution, or finding the right people is getting increasingly tougher, right? So that is where the continuity automation comes in. It can, of course, bring order to the chaos of complex and error-prone recoveries. Is it one? Resiliency and recovery. Is it one or different? We say recovery, right? We recover from something which has happened to our organization, and even has happened, right? So, how do we deliver a resilient program? Okay, I was provided the opportunity to talk about data resiliency, but take a look at where data is, right? So technology, data, your applications, your processes, your organization, and first comes your strategy and vision, right? And through all these layers, the first one, which talks about continuity, availability, recovery, and security. All these layers, okay, should adopt the first one. Only then your resiliency is built right from the beginning. As I said, resiliency versus recovery. Okay, recovery implies that there was downtime. Some event happened, as to what our previous speaker talked about. Hacking had happened, an event had happened. A malware had come into our organization. Okay, there was downtime during the business operations were unavailable. But resiliency, okay, it would have affected, but the users never knew that it had happened. That is the difference between your recovery and your resilience. Remember the 5 nines? At this point of time, since I'm a COBIT 5 being a business framework, being a COBIT 5 evangelist, I thought I should bring in some part of data governance and management. How many of you think governance and management are different? Management is the same as governance? They are different. They are different. Okay, at least COBIT 5 establishes a difference between governance and management. Simply put, it says the DMBOK Data Management Book of Knowledge. It talks about exercising authority and control over the management of data assets. But COBIT 5 it talks about the stakeholder needs. Direction is set for the information management. It talks about information. It doesn't talk about data. It talks about information, meaning it applies meaning to your data. Performance and compliance of the information resource. The one key difference between the DIMBOK and the Corbett 5 is, whereas Corbett 5 talks about planning, building, running, and managing the activities associated for your organization. In this context, it's data, right? So, but what DIMBOK says is, it says acquire, control, protect, and deliver. There is a slight variation between these two definitions, actually, and we follow, I mean, rather, since I'm a Corbett 5 professional, I follow Corbett 5. I thought I should bring in some aspects of Corbett 5 here. Okay, there are, since we are talking information, there are some 16 to 18 information quality criteria, which Corbett 5 talks about, building effective, building into the CIA triad. The confidentiality, the integrity, the availability. Let's just take a look at it. Information quality criteria, the security and the accessibility, and the availability part brings you the resiliency. One, the extent to which the information is available when required, okay, and quickly retrievable. So Corbett 5 also talks about resiliency in an information perspective. The second one being restricted access. I mean, the information should be restricted. Of course, it should be restricted. But is it also available to authorized users? So I'm here, you're slightly bringing that CIA triad into this and focusing on availability. One of the information quality criteria from Corbett 5 is availability and restricted access. Right, as I said, information quality goals map to the security CIA. One of them is your availability. Confidentiality, again, it's mapped to the restricted access. Integrity, the combination of completeness and accuracy. Of course, I don't want to talk about integrity, modification of data from point A to B. Availability, timely and reliable access for the authorized users. Is it available for them? A small example, what is your biggest concern about technology? Am I overspending on technology, or is it not providing me the solution which it is supposed to do it? Or the combination of both? Right. Changes, right? It changes. Technology evolves, right? And by the time we would want to build a solution and go to the market, somebody else has gone to the market with the same set of users, competitors, and everything. So the problem is we buy boxes of availability, right? We buy technology rather than building it, right? We buy boxes, we buy technology, clustering, mirror, disks, RAIDs, whatnot, okay? But the focus should be on building resiliency rather than buying it. That's the point which I would want to make it here. So two things. One, I would want to stress that resiliency is not technology, it's part of the business. And you need to build resiliency rather than buying it. So where does redundancy come here? All three R's: resiliency, recovery, redundancy. When we say redundancy, what comes to your mind? Say, for instance, if I want to be redundant with my content here, what should I have done? Right, duplication. I could have brought a USB stick, okay, and provided it to these folks and asked them to do it. But of course, I didn't build the redundancy here. I sent the presentation to them earlier. But here is a question. There are two towers, okay. The there are connections between these two towers. Okay, there is redundancy here. Okay, because there are three levels of connections between these two towers. Imagine a single event taking these connections out. Okay, so is your process or is your system resilient now? Okay, you can be redundant and yet not resilient. Okay, so here a single event took down all three connections, right? And then you're not resilient. So what happens if an event takes out the connecting structures? Redundancy was defeated by a single event. So resiliency builds on top of redundancy. Keep redundant components in each of the building, right? In each of the towers. Redundant components in each building. Ensure separate demarcation points, entry for power, telecommunications, and data. Simple example, I thought I should bring it up to you. I mean, you can be redundant. Of course, redundancy, if you build redundancy, your resiliency is also assured. But then again, a single event can take out your redundancy and you will not be resilient. So, ensure that no single event can defeat redundancy. Do you think still are we resilient? I mean, one event, we have the three connections between those two towers, right? And do you think still, even after being redundant, okay, one event taking out, do you think still we are resilient, right? There comes the performance factor. One structure goes down, the traffic which flows on that particular structure is taken over by the second one. So what happens to the second one? The performance of the second one deteriorates. Okay, so we need to talk about how resilient would that connection be. So one, quality of service would allow us to permit only business critical traffic. Even in business continuity or your disaster recovery, two things happens. What do you bring up first? Which, if something goes down, and what do you bring the entire systems up? No. Only your business critical functions are brought up first, and then slowly the entire operations. Similarly, the business critical traffic is brought up first. Now, tell me, is it technology or business? Business. How many of you have changed your mind today? From resiliency, from being a technology perspective to a business perspective. How many of you have changed? At least I've changed. I was thinking that it was more technology. Okay, but believe me, it's more on the business side. You need to have your stakeholders design resiliency at the top, not at the later stages of your operations. So in conclusion, it's tightly aligned to your business strategy. Remember that four strategy, vision, data, technology. So it starts with your business strategy, and bring in more integration. Don't have silos of risk management, information security. Bring them, integrate them is one thing which resiliency talks about. From business processes to corporate or data center for that matter. So, a resilient organization, is it like a spring? It absorbs the impact and bounces back. You never know something has gone wrong. That is how an organization should be resilient. Recover, you can recover. You are saying something has gone down. Okay, but resiliency, you need to, users doesn't need to know something has happened behind the scenes. So, does yours? So, think about it. Sorry, I didn't have my coordinates here. I am Mahesh Balakrishnan. You can reach me at maheshbalakrishnan@live.com, live.com. I'll take a couple of questions if you have. Two things. One, it's gone way over your head, or the brownie still is working. You're saying both the combination, maybe, right? I mean, the questions can come anytime. I'm available at that email address, mahesh.balakrishnan@live.com. So, any questions? Am I on time?
Yes. Is there any standards set for testing the backups?
See, there are n number of standards. There are n number of standards. But the question is, are we following them? Okay. N number of standards. Even your ISO 27001 talks about backups, right? Right. So ITIL, I mean, in some case of service operations, right? So we talk about standards. We are so primed up for standards, but then again, we miss out. We really do miss out. So that's one of the reasons why I say, don't think in terms of your standards, your guidelines, your procedures. Think resiliency from a design perspective. You folks would be thinking security by design. What today I'm telling you folks